waited. I know it's been a few days since I went live, so que será. Um, this this is an ask me anything type format again, just because I didn't have a specific topic, and I'm just calling this the ask me anything pre Blizzard chat because here in the DMV we expect a blizzard to start sometime in the afternoon. I think around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it should last until Monday. So I don't know how heavy it's going to be, but because of that, I was like, okay, well, I'll just do this little live stream since I haven't done one in 2 or 3 days. I think 2 days, and then the last one I had to cut it short. So again, it's ask me anything, and when I say ask me anything, there are some provisos. Those provisos are: one, these questions should be family friendly questions. Two, I don't do relationship or therapy, or I don't answer relationship or uh, clinical questions, um, clinical psychological questions, unless you're dropping a super chat. And three, I don't give legal advice because I am not a lawyer, so don't ask a content creator for legal advice unless that content creator himself is a licensing and practicing attorney, particularly in your state. Because even if they are a licensed and practicing attorney, if they don't practice in your state, the advice they give you can still be bad. And because there's so many lawyers out there, you get more bad advice than good advice anyway. So when you look at when you look at the different levels of legal advice you can get, it's more bad than good. So those are my three provisos on asking on my on my ask me anything live streams. One is that the questions be family friendly. Two, don't ask me like relationship or therapeutic questions unless you're dropping a super chat. Then I will be happy to answer it. And three, don't ask me legal questions because I'm not a lawyer. So that's it. Other than that, ask away. Um, Again, I don't pretend to be an expert in any particular field, but I know a few things, and so I'm willing to share. And what I don't know, I mean, we can discover together. So that's how I'm rocking. Do I have any pets? Yes. Um, I have a cat here, and in my home overseas, I have a cat and a dog. So yep, I do have pets. Mm. So someone's asking me a leading question, hoping for me to lead into it so they can try to say something goofy. That doesn't work. But nice try. Anywho, what's up, Brittany? Thank you. It's evening here, so I'm about to have a good evening and go to bed afterwards. But I hope this. I really hope this storm is a dud. I hope it goes. I hope it mostly traverses to Chesapeake Bay up the coast because I know it's supposed to hit more severely. Depending on which way it goes, it may hit more severely towards like New York and Massachusetts, those areas. So it just depends on how far west it comes, because the storm is incoming from the meteorological reports. So it's just a matter of how west it, you know, it travels to how much snow is going to bring us, which I'm not looking forward to, because we've just had 5 weeks of snow and it's just starting to melt away. But yeah, let me put on my reading glasses because some of you guys have some weird usernames, and I can't tell whether I'm just looking at some weird diacritics or script or my eyes. Combination of both, more than likely. And let me clean these glasses off because people always try to make fun of the fact that my glasses are smudged. I really can't help that because it's coming from the oils on my skin, which smudges them. Because a brother has to stay moisturized. You know what I'm saying? So that is what smudges my glasses. Um, yeah, I can't. I'm not going to even pretend to try to say what that username is. But he or she says, "Been a minute since I've been here on a different account. Been a year since you've probably been asked how's your stance on politics right now." I don't even know what that question means. What's my stance on politics right now? Politics is literally everything involving politics, politicians, and government. So you would have to kind of corral that question to make it something more sanely to answer. Like that is a question that's too vague to answer. Like I'm pretty sure they taught you better in like middle school and high school that your questions have to be, you know, well, some of you didn't because some of you went to some poorly performing schools and public education in America sucks. But in any case, um, yeah, you have to make your question answerable. Like that's too vague a question. R. says scrolling by, sending positive vibes. You're awesome. Appreciate that. Someone said I saw a furry. Okay, you'll be okay. Yeah. So there's a few retards in here, so I'm just gonna skip answering it, whatever they're saying. Just in general, how do you feel about the Gab Fest show of what's going on in mainstream media? It's nothing new. I mean, it's nothing new. Like you must be young. You have to understand been someone in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who've been attuned to like TV news or mainstream news for like 30 plus years. It's nothing new. Like there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to mainstream media. Like I don't take it seriously. Like unless it's affecting my pockets or my freedom, like I'm not taking stuff on mainstream media seriously. My bold, well, if you're too retarded to not be able to tell, then that's your fault. Like I'm not gonna answer retarded questions. Sorry. That should probably be my fourth proviso. I have three provisos when it comes to asking anything, which is generally, uh, family friendly questions. Don't ask me relationship or therapeutic questions unless it's a super chat. And three, I don't answer legal questions. My fourth one should probably be don't ask stupid ass questions. See, the problem is some teachers used to tell people in public schools There's no such thing as a stupid question. Oh, yes, the fuck there is. If it's a question that you can answer on your own, then it's probably a stupid question. Or if it's a question that shouldn't be voiced out loud, it's probably a stupid question. But yeah, in any case, no, I'm not. I like my hair cut short because I have testosterone. I don't want long hair like a bitch. That's why I keep my hair cut short. I cut it I cut it short on intentionally because it's easier to take care of. And again, I don't like long hair. I think it's feminine with guys who wear braids and dreads. And I'm not knocking anyone who has dreads and dreads. If you have dreads or braids and it's well kept and you can get a job or have a job while wearing long hair or locks, fine. I just don't consider it particularly manly, but that's on me because I'm more of a straight edge sort of person. No, I've never had long hair. I've had an afro, but I've never had long hair. I would never have long hair. It doesn't. It looks effeminate. I don't think. Don't like it. Even during the era in the early 2000s when everyone had cornrows, I did not. I I would refuse to grow my hair out to get cornrows. On top of that, what made it even more effeminate was guys were getting extensions put on their cornrows so they could have hang time. I remember asking people, I was like, what? I was like, what do these people keep talking about when they said they need hang time with their cornrows? And they and people explained it to me. I was like, that is so fucking girly. Like I have, no. I come from an era of, when I was a kid, there was flat tops and hot and flat the flat tops and high top fades, you know, box fades, the gumbies, the inclines, all that, and then after that was like the fade or the temple tape, or if you wanted some more hair, the blowout. And some people had cornrows, but usually back then, the only people who had like dreads and locks were like the artsy sort of folks, and then around the turn of like the late 90s, early 2000s, people were rocking cornrows or whatever. Oh, that's cool. Then everyone started getting dreads, and I think the dreads just became a way for a lot of people to wear their hair without because it was cheaper than getting a haircut every 2 weeks. Personally, I think a lot of people started wearing dreads just because it was cheaper than getting a haircut every 2 weeks. Uh, Jay, this was no stupid questions, only stupid people asking them. Mm, it can be both, Jay Dizzle. A stupid person will ask a stupid question. um, and a smart person can ask a stupid question. I think you. I mean, I guess. I mean, I haven't thought about this in depth, but sometimes a stupid person can ask a insightful question. Vice versa, sometimes a smart person can ask a stupid question. But so it's not necessarily the case that only stupid people ask stupid ask questions that are stupid. So, uh, I'm not going to say this user today because it's yeah. So Poke says, "What do you think about dudes like Khalid Williams painting their nails?" Um, so I don't remember his name, but I do remember the person you're talking about. I think he's in the NBA, right? Um, look, hey, again, it's effeminate, but if that's what they want to do, fine. Like I'm look, as, as critical as I am about my image, I'm very liberal about other people's image. If they want to look at, if these men want to look soft and effeminate, by all means, go ahead and be soft and effeminate. Um, but I do think it. I think as a society, if we have a bunch of men who are effeminate, then that is a problem. And I see that a lot of Gen Z are typically more effeminate than than the previous generations, which shows in also they lacking in the same levels of testosterone as previous generations and IQ levels because of the reverse Flynn effect, which we can talk about, later or another time, whatever. But look, would I hang out with him? No, but am I gonna like shit a brick because he's doing it? No. So I personally, I don't care. I just think it's he's just symptomatic of his generation of men who are effeminate. Um, and it will take maybe hardship, which may be coming to us in the next 10 years or so, that men will be forced to uh, reoccupy more traditional roles in society. We'll see. Wyatt Chaka 12 says, loving your channel as always. Thank you. Uh, the guy with the crazy username says, hey man, I dropped out in the ninth grade. Don't blame me for being stupid. Blame my parents. No, I mean, that is on you. After the age of 13, I'm pretty sure you know the role of school. And I'm guessing that you're actually not American because depending on in many states, you are required to be in school until the age of 18. Now, some people will drop out, but typically, um, if ninth grade is around the age of 14 to 15, you still have to be in school of some sort, or they will send CPS out. When I was younger, they still had truancy officers. As a matter of fact, Kamala Harris used to lock up people's parents in the Bay Area when she was a state's attorney or whatever. If their kids ditched school, she had the parents locked up on truancy violations. So I'm guessing you are not American if you dropped out in the ninth grade. I Yeah, sorry, you can only blame your parents for so much. Many of those decisions are incumbent on you. But yeah, we're not gonna play the blame game when you knew you should have been in school. He said I tried to be insightful. No, there's no trying to be insightful. Either you are or you aren't. Um, and from and the bit of insight that you can learn to have comes through again formal education. So GUXXIGOO says, "Do you think Ronda Rousey will win?" I didn't even know she came back out of retirement, so I have no clue. Leah Chaka 12 says, I'm in Alabama. Cool. But yeah, so is Ronda Rousey out of retirement? Is she fighting in the MMA again? I mean, she was in WWE, and then she quit or got fired from there as well because she doesn't play well with others. I suspect that Ronda Rousey has some uh either undiagnosed or undisclosed um mental health problems. I'm not going to armchair diagnose her, but that's you know she has issues, and that's what's affecting her career for the past 10 years. So the dude with un the unintelligible username said, "That's why I watch you to get smart." Duh. That's not how you get smart. Duh. You don't get smart by watching video content. For one, being smart is largely innate, especially as you get older, because of something called the Wilson effect. Um, IQ is mostly innate, and it becomes more. Well, let me say this: it's both innate and something that is learned, but mostly innate. And because of the Wilson effect, the 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 herit, the heritability ratio, that is the percentage of how much of it is, you know, due to like your own genetic endowment, increases over time because of the Wilson effect. It increases up to 80%, whereas the amount due to the environment, specifically shared environment, goes down to zero. If your IQ is already 85, then you're already borderline. That is borderline retardation. Like, and I'm not even trying to be funny. Like, 85 is literally the level of IQ that clinicians would classify someone as borderline retarded. Although they don't use that term anymore, um, they will say borderline intellectual dysfunction. Yeah, that the average IQ is not 85 to 115. That is a complete fucking lie. Ge- general and general intelligence, like many psychological traits, is normally distributed, which means it falls on a bell curve, with the average being 100 and the variance being between 90 and 110. Someone above 110 would be considered above average IQ. Someone below 90 IQ would be considered below average IQ. When you hit 85, that is when you reach the clinical level of borderline intellectual dysfunction. 85 is not within the average range. I don't need to look it up. I have a fucking degree in this field. 85 is not good. You're a fucking dropout at not at in the ninth grade. You're not smart. You're not average IQ. You are below average IQ. You have borderline intellectual retardation, which shows why you would have dropped out at the ninth grade, because the ninth grade is not hard. The average IQ of a high school graduate is 103. Um, and again, the average IQ of the general population itself is 100. But if you want to put it within degrees of the degrees of freedom, um, it, you have two centiles of difference from 90 to 110. Anything above 110 is above average. Anything below 90 is below average. So anything between that 90 to 110, that is average. Once you get down, once you get to 120 and above, that's considered gifted. Once you get below, once you get below, yeah, once you get below 80, that is mental retardation. So, yeah. The show of life says, so you like the judges. I'm not judging. I'm answering a question, dipshit. He's asking me something. I'm correcting him because he was wrong. He asked, I'm answering. That's what ask me anything refers to. So you're kind of fucking stupid. If I'm rude, then get the fuck off my channel, bitch. No one asked you to come here. Go suck a dick. Like I don't come to your job knocking dicks out of your mouth while you're working. So let me do my job here. Andre says hello, Four Eyes. Um. So anyway, again, no, it's not my job. I'm I'm not a psycho. I'm not a psychometrician. What's it? Psychometrist. Sorry. I always forget, is a psychometrician or psychometrist? I always get those confused because because the field that deals with testing, like standardized testing, is called psychometry. Let me look something up on my little PC here. So what is my IQ? You don't have to worry about what my IQ is. I'll tell you this. I mean, the college graduate, the average the average IQ of a college graduate from the late '90s is 120. So I'll leave it there. What? Why get a degree for what you did? What? um, I was a triple major, so I have more than one degree, and I got it in the field in which I wanted to, in which I had interest in pursuing. Oh, let's see. Okay, sorry, looking up something on my PC. My charger. Andre says I got my bastard degree after my father died. I don't know what that even means, saying you got your bastard degree. Okay, he's being a retard, so he can go. Anywho, you're very smart. I'm not very smart. I mean, I'm not dumb, but I don't consider myself very smart. And people who do consider themselves very smart, um, you should be you should be you should be wary of people who tout their own intelligence. I'll say that much. Because usually people who tend to be people who genuinely are smart tend to be more skeptical about how intelligent they actually are. People who aren't often are the opposite because of things like the Dunning Kruger effect or other cognitive biases. Oh yeah, yeah, so I was right the first time. A psychometrician. Yeah, that I mean, I am not a practicing psychometrician. That was just one of the sub disciplines within psychology that I found a lot of interest in, which was like the measurement of people's knowledge and standardized testing and general intelligence and all that sort of stuff. I found that stuff pretty interesting. 3 degrees, yeah. I mean, that's um, Yoda Game 11 says, "Can you sell me some chicken from the back, chicken man?" No, but I can sell your mother my dick in her mouth. He says, "Did you actually find a job in the field or negative?" Again, all right. I'm not trying to be mean because I understand you don't know these things. So I'm not gonna try to be smart here. I'm just gonna explain. Okay. In science, you cannot practice. By and large, there are some exceptions, but by and large, you cannot practice science with an undergraduate degree. It takes at least a master's and usually a doctorate to practice a scientific discipline. Unless you, the only thing really available to an undergrad uh, is is a research assistant job. And research assistant jobs are not well paying. They're not careers. They're usually stopgap jobs. A stopgap job means something that you know you can work for right now, but it's not something that's going to last. That's a stopgap job, like McDonald's or working at Staples, something like that. So research assistant jobs are typically stopgap jobs, and they're generally the only type of job someone with an undergrad degree can attain without pursuing higher degrees. However, even research assistant jobs are hard to get for an undergrad because usually they're competing with people who have master's degrees or higher for those same research assistant positions. So that's why I'm not practicing in my field. Have I done? Have I had experience in the field? Yes, but no, I'm not. I'm not a practicing psychologist because to be a practicing psychologist or any other professional or scientific discipline typically takes a graduate degree, usually at the doctoral level. So that's what I was trying to say, and I didn't want to be I didn't want to be smart about that because I know you didn't know what I was talking about. What's up, Jr. Marty says just hey, the curtain made me think you were a doctor. Oh no, those are just those are just regular curtains. But even back then, I had decided back in undergrad that I didn't want to be a clinical psychologist or counseling psychologist. I wanted to do something more in the more in the theoretical or experimental side. So first it went from experimental to theoretical. That's why I did the other majors because they gave me the flexibility to do something more in cognitive science. And Panther says, huh? What are you confused on? Like, you can't just jump into a live stream and be like, what are you talking about? But I see you're just retarded, so you can go too. Do, 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 do. Oh, Streamlabs got him too. So good. Double whammy. Um, but yeah, again, I don't think I'm smarter than everyone else for those who were saying that. Um, I was simply telling the guy that what he thought was average IQ isn't. I have seen that online where people, because I have seen that online well as well, where it says from 85 to 115, and that's not the normal range of intelligence. The normal range is between 90 and 100. I mean, sorry, 90 to 110. The reason being is because you're talking about centiles from if you go from 90 to 100, that's a whole centile or percent, right? It's a whole centile. From 100 to 110 is another centile. So then if you add, so then if you take 85 and 115, that's three centiles. And it doesn't work out that way because we already know that someone functioning at an 85 IQ level is typically suffering from borderline intellectual dysfunction, which means they're less likely to complete high school, which in this day and age is like the bare fucking minimum. Whereas someone at 115 probably has uh, college level education or something similar. All other things being equal, because there are some other, neurodevelopmental issues that might arise. But yes, someone at 85 is not functioning at a normal IQ level. Uh, um, they, like I said, they would be considered borderline intellectual dysfunction, which doesn't mean they need to wear like a helmet or anything, but life is going to be much harder for them. Oh, he says, yeah, my both my parents went to prison. Okay, so I stand corrected on what you said earlier when you said is my parents are to blame. Yeah, I would have to say they if both parents actually went to prison, that would be quite bad. He says group home got abused and of course ran away. Hmm. Are you from are you American? Because I mean I can't see your avatar from here, so I but something leads me to think this happened in another country. But yeah, I mean these things happen in America too, but I don't know. Oh, you are American. Okay. I wasn't sure. Well, I mean, your life is tragic, but again, we do have to take personal responsibility for our mistakes. Even though we can understand that other, there's other factors involved. No one makes decisions in a no one makes decisions in a social vacuum, right? So there are other variables involved, like again, shared environment, unshared environment, um, which you went through you know, during your mother's pregnancy, nutrition, environment, yeah, like your environment, like all these things. But again, once we're an adult, we have to take personal responsibility for those things, especially when you're talking about in adolescence, because in adolescence, we do know right from wrong, and not just on a purely black and white level of right and wrong like we have as children. Once you enter the adolescent stage, you can be more, you can, you typically can reason more abstractly. But again, if you really do have IQ that's around 85, as you claim, that would mean you probably do have limited capacity to think abstractly. And that's why I was saying 85 isn't a normal IQ range because of that. Okay. Need some water. Drink water. It looks like the stream doesn't let me set the gift goals anymore. Maybe they got rid of that. That was just experimental because haven't been able to set that for a week. I guess they got rid of that trial. Maybe that was just a trial basis. I don't see it anymore. But yeah, I mean, again, what you went through sounds tragic, and if you haven't already, I would actually recommend therapy. I'm a huge proponent of therapy, but particularly cognitive behavioral therapy. I think is the most is the most science based approach to psychotherapy is cognitive behavioral therapy. Uh, so I guess that's IG'd up. Well, I don't know how you want that username pronounced, if it is pronounceable at all. But he says been in the factory since I've been 18, and I'm at a point of I don't want to do machine operation. Well, I'm I don't know what to tell you because without a high school education, you really have very limited options here. Um, you can go you know, go back to school and attain your GED, and then from there, maybe attend trade school or something. But you have very limited options at this point. Like the fast food restaurants now expect people to have a high school education now. It's not like back in the day where you know they would take high school, like, I mean, there's still high school kids to work in fast food, but it's a lot more adults now that work in these roles that formerly used to go to like high school kids and college kids during the summer, working a summer job. So, I mean, you know the cliche, don't quit your day job. I would not quit the day job if I were you, because again, you have, and again, I'm trying to be sensitive here, but you have very limited options in your life without, I mean, both with your um, limited limited cognitive abilities as well as, no, you don't have a formal you never excuse me, you never finished your formal education. Like, frankly, you should actually be happy that you have a job, because that doesn't really happen in 2026 anymore. Someone can, you know have a functional job that actually they can live off of without at least a high school education. Not in 2026. Maybe in 1976, yes. In 1976, that was quite possible. Maybe even 86, but 2026? No, that's very rare. Very rare. I mean, you gotta understand, you're competing with college graduates who can't get jobs. College graduates, you have to compete with college graduates who can't get jobs. Even grad students who can't who have a hard time finding jobs. That is the job market. And if you hear politicians tell you, both on the left and on the right, they'll tell you that the you know the economy is doing better. When Biden was in office, they tried to fudge the numbers and try to gaslight people on why the economy isn't as bad as we think it is. Now, Trump's in office, and the same thing is going on, where they're gaslighting people into thinking that the that the economy is much better than what it really is, and we're not. We're still in a recession. Jobs are not hiring. Uh, inflation rates are through the roof. Um, yeah. Again, the competition you will find in the market, in the current labor market, you should be happy with the job that you have and keep it until you actually have something to replace it. And only until you have something to replace your current job, stay where you are. Stay where you are. He says it seems pretty common where I live, especially in the factory. Yeah, I mean, the option would have been the military, but again, the military is way more picky nowadays. Like, they want educated folks, and they want people who are physically fit. And the sad state of America is, the average American don't qualify for the military. And I'm speaking as a vet. Like, the average American does not qualify for enlistment, much less to receive a officer's commission, which both of which I was eligible for when I served. The reason I didn't go to get my commission is because after we got called up to go to the Middle East, I came back on a medical discharge, so couldn't get that commission. But at least, like I said, at least I knew I was eligible for it. And like I said, most people aren't even eligible to enlist nowadays. They're not. The average American is physically unfit or mentally unfit. So if you want to do so, the only other thing I can say is you can try your hand at the military, and if you do, I would suggest the Navy. they are their standards are the most lax right now. It used to be an open, it used to be a running joke that the Marines would take anybody, but I don't even know about that anymore. I think the Navy has replaced them with being um, the most tolerant in taking anyone off the streets and allowing them to enlist. So if you want to leave the factory, depending on your age, I don't know what your age is, but I would consider the military, particularly the Navy or the Marines, who take the lowest ASVAB scores, because once you attempt to enlist, you are going to have to take the ASVAB, which is the Army Service Vocational Aptitude Battery. Uh, Part of it is an IQ test. So there's like I think there's four or like six tests. I think it's four tests within the ASVAB, which actually assess your IQ, which is called the AFQT, the Armed Forces Qualifications Test. It is an IQ test, but uh, unlike uh, unlike an IQ test for um, that you might take, with a clinical psychologist or at school, it is not made to ascertain the highest IQ score that you can attain. It's rather aimed at showing that you can score a high enough IQ to function well in the military. So it only goes up to 99, which means a lot of people will overperform on it who would typically have an IQ of, um, I'm guessing 115 or greater. Um, but yeah, I mean, for folks who don't like their current station in life, you can always, you can always go to your local recruiter and see if you qualify for enlistment. And before people say, I'm not going to do such and such because I'm not trying to die, blah, blah, blah. Uh, eh, I want people to bear in mind that most people in the military don't serve in a combat role. The majority of people serve in a support role. Robert kind of, what's up? He says, "Hey, dude, it's been a while. How have you been? How's life? Same, mostly doing well. What time do I got here? Ooh, getting a little late, but I'm gonna rock it out for a little while. But yeah, like I said, if someone doesn't like their current station in life, but they have limited opportunities either because they didn't pursue higher education or they have limited their intellectual capacities are a bit limited. Again, you might shoot your shot for military enlistment. I mean, they can only tell you no. I mean, they can only tell you you don't qualify, but they're not going to like be disrespectful towards you for attempting to do so. He says, as far as our policies, domestic and foreign, are you still referring to your factory, or I mean, are you still referring to your company, or are you referring to the military? I'm a little bit lost on that. Robert says, good shit. So no, I'm asking, would you fight again? Yeah, I mean, if I would definitely re-enlist if I wasn't over the age of enlistment. Yes, actually, I could still enlist now with the DC National Guard because they're taking people up to the age of, I believe, 60. As long as you're still physically fit, the DC National Guard is looking for prior service members. And if you're Army and Marines, you don't have to go through retraining. But if you are coming, if you're coming from the Navy, Air Force, or Coast Guard, you would have to probably go through some retraining uh, to be in the DC National Guard. That is something I have considered. But yeah, I would serve again, not necessarily fight again. Not everyone in the military serves in a combat role. The people who serve in a combat role are the minority. The majority of people in the military serve on have a support role. Like the joke in the army, um, for people in army infantry is you either part of the infantry or you support the infantry. that, that was how um, that is how infantry grunts in the army looked at the military. They was like, you're either in the they said, look, you either in the infantry or you support the infantry. But yeah, most people in the military serve in a support role. They're not serving in any sort of combat arms, because to serve in combat arms requires you to not only be fit enough to be in the military, but it requires a higher level of fitness than someone just serving in a support role. And that's even more the case when you talk about people who are special operators. They are they go beyond conventional military. So, so maybe I let politics take too much of a toll on me and should rather focus on putting myself in a better position. Yes, you focusing on politics is not helping you. You need to be focusing on yourself. Sitting there digesting every bit of information that comes out about the president or your local Congress members or mayors or governors isn't really doing anything for you unless you are getting paid to do so. Like when I discuss politics and stuff on my videos, I'm getting monetized for doing so. So I'm literally making money discussing those sort of things. But if in your day to day you're always talking about politics and it's not doing anything for you and maybe alienating you from people who may disagree with you, I don't really think that's a good idea. So like I wouldn't want to join and be sent to Iran. Again, you're missing this is exactly why I prefaced people possibly enlisting in the military with the following message that most people who join the military are not serving in a combat arms position. You don't go in like that's what I keep telling you with the different branches of the military. First of all, Space Force has no combat arms um, whatsoever because their field of operation is literally space, and we're probably like at least 20 years um, before we will ever see Space Force actually in the field putting in work. For the rest of the branches, all of them have some sort of limited capacity for combat arms, but most particularly, it is the Army and the Marines that have the most combat arm positions. And but even though the Army is built around infantry, again, most of the people in the Army serve in a support role: logistics, supply, medical, cook, uh, engineering. Like this, the Army has the widest scope of military occupations that you can choose from any other branch. I mean, compared to any other branch. And again, um, the people who serve in combat arms are the minority in the army. They're not the majority. They're the minority. Most people don't go into those combat arms positions, which is like um, infantry and artillery, uh, and um, cavalry and special operations and all that sort of stuff. Like most people don't go into that. Most people serve in a support capacity. So you're not being sent to Iran. First of all, you're not going to be sent to Iran because they are a sovereign nation who are one of our bitterest enemies. That doesn't make sense. So I get what you mean, but no, you. It depends on what position you choose and what position you qualify for to choose from. Um, so most of the people who choose most people who go into infantry actively choose infantry because they want that adventure. The people who choose infantry aren't like a lot of people have this, this preconception that people will be tricked into, like, or not tricked necessarily, but maybe pushed into serving in infantry or some other combat arms position, and that's not necessarily true. You choose whatever you like, um, as far as long as you qualify for that military occupation. Um, but most of the people who actively go into something like infantry or the cavalry or field artillery or um, uh, combat engineer or special operations, like these people actively seek out those positions because they want that sense of adventure. They was like, well, they want to do a few years in infantry just to have that experience in the field, putting in work, and then they might switch positions to something else where they're in a chair all day. It just depends on what a person wants, but most, like I said, most people in the military don't have that sense of adventure. He said, I wouldn't support the message. I don't know what that means. So, given the circumstances, I would assume they would send me to front line to be cannon fodder. Again, that's not how it works. You, once you enlist and you qualify, you enlist and then you qualify, all other things being equal, at the interesting and processing station, you choose your military occupation. No one's going to trick you into being infantry. You choose what you want. On top of that, when you're in entrance, when you're choosing your job, they even say, hey, if you want to call someone to help you, advise you on what job to pick, go ahead, which is exactly what I did. So when I was looking through the different types of jobs available, I called my father, although he gave me bad advice. But um, yeah, I mean, you can call someone because you might have a family member like I did who's prior service, who might you know give you um, recommendations on what to choose or what not to choose. Um, but no one, again, no one. This is not. You watch too many movies. No one's. This is not. You're basing this off of movies from an era when people were drafted. No one's drafted anymore, so you're not going to be sent to the front lines. And even during the era of the draft, again, you didn't have to choose infantry. You could have chose something else. Even during the era of the draft, if you volunteered to serve in the military, whatever branch it may be, again, you would choose your military occupation based on your qualifications. I get what you're saying because of your limited uh, education and so forth, that you might have limited things that you could do, but there's things that you could do uh, besides infantry, like cook. They often make fun of army cooks or whatever, or military cooks in general, but they serve a vital role. Like no one's mad at the people giving them food. I tell you that they might make fun of cooks, but no one makes fun. Look, no one's making fun of them people when they delivering them that chow after you've been in the field for 2 weeks eating MREs, which are meals ready to eat, the little prepackaged food. When those people come to the range and serve hot chow, that's like that's like you feel like you just hit McDonald's or something. Like, mm. But yeah, there are other positions you could take even if you score very low on the ASVAB aside from infantry, such as being a cook or maybe um uh, something dealing with like custodial sort of work. Those are available as well. So so you can choose in the military. Yes, again, you can choose in the military. I don't know what makes you think that you just go in and they just assign you a role. You you get assigned to for you you are volunteering when you join the military, so you choose what you want based on what you qualify for. Again, ascertaining your qualifications through the ASVAB and your physical and mental readiness. You said I thought they enroll you in a position. No, they don't. And Robert says now they would try to push it on you. No. Again, no one's going to try to put. Look, I went through interesting and processing. Like my family has a. All the men in my family have a military background. No one was forced to do a job they didn't want to do in the military. You might have regretted the military occupation that you chose, but that wasn't forced on you. That's something different. Like if you choose a position that you no longer that you then find out that you find undesirable, well, that's on you. But they don't force it on you. Now they might encourage certain positions, and usually they do that by having enlistment bonuses. Like um, like right now, they've been trying to get people to become rangers in the army. They're trying to get people to do psychological ops in the army, and so they have very uh, large enlistment bonuses for people who uh, who sign up for that and qualify for it. Okay. Um, Sorry, I'm fixing something here, but again, that is a far cry from them forcing. They don't force a position on you. This is 2026, and even when I enlisted in 1998, again, they were not forcing you into any position. That's not how it works. I would recommend people not judge the military based on watching military movies about stuff from the 1700s and 1800s. Like the 20th century, they were not forcing you into a position. Like I said, the only thing that was forced on people was the draft. Up until the 70s, they were forcing people to into they were forcing enlistment onto military age men, from the ages of I guess 17 to 34. um but even just because they just because men had to serve didn't mean they still couldn't choose what position they wanted. And again, if you're volunteering, if you are going there and requesting to be a part of the military, of course you pick what you want. What you don't get what you don't get a so I think the disconnect here is you're thinking of civilian jobs where you go to a you go to a store or a factory or an office, and you're assigned a job based on what they need, that's not how the military runs. You choose your own position. If you want to be a, if you join the army and you want to be a firefighter, and you qualify for it, go right ahead. Or again, if you want to be a cook, go right ahead and be a cook. But if you want to do, if you do have a sense of adventure, then yeah, maybe you might want to do infantry, or you might consider um, army special forces. Like if you have that sense of adventure, then go right ahead. But no one's going to force you to do that. Guxxigoo says, I think Ronda Rousey is still fine. I guess if you say so. I mean, she's never been particularly arousing to me, but that's because I think she looks funny looking. But and thank you for the gift, by the way, Robert. He said, is that a rank like line cook? No, that's not a. Again, that's a position. It's not a rank. Everyone is ranked. Everyone is ranked based on their pay grade. So you have what E1 through E1 through like E9, and then and for the enlisted, and O1 through O9 as well for the uh, commissioned officers. Um, your pay grade is your pay grade is not your occupation. That's two different things. How would you obtain raises? Again, all right. Yeah, I'm about to go. It's getting late. Um, you don't you make more money by going to the next pay grade level and your time in service. So your time in service determines how much you make, and your pay grade determines how much you make as well. So if you're an E4, you make what an E4 makes. And then you also have your time in service. So an E4 with a certain amount of time makes more than the E4 who just became an E4. That's yeah. Anywho, I think I think I've exhausted this conversation. If you want to know more, I suggest you actually talk with a recruiter so they can give you the most up to date information for you. Um, and you have the pick of the litter. You have the Army, you have the Marines, you have the Navy, you have the Air Force, you have the Coast Guard, you have Space Force. There are also some other governmental agencies that work within the Department of Defense or DoD, um, such as NOAA and what's the other one? I forgot. But those are only considered military on a commission, and we already know that in your position you would not be eligible for commission. So for you it would be enlistment, and I don't even know if you qualify for enlistment, but again, you can shoot your shot, and I would advise you if you are going to shoot your shot to try Marines and the Navy. If you want to know more, I would say talk with a recruiter from the Marine Corps or the Navy, and they might be able to still bypass the fact that you but I really doubt it, because if you haven't attained at least your GED, the military, frankly, the military is not going to accept you unless they unless they have someone sign give you a waiver to for enlistment. You can possibly get an enlistment waiver. That's what I was saying. You can shoot your shot, but if you're going to shoot your shot, I would suggest the Navy and the Marines. But more than likely, you wouldn't qualify for enlistment as a dropout. You would have to have at least your GED to qualify for the military. This is again, this is not the military. This is not the military from 70 years ago, because 70 years ago we were still in war, still in the Vietnam War. So they would probably take a dropout who's at least 18 years old. This is not that day or age. So again, if you want to get out of that factory position, which I would tell you to hold on to for dear life, I would say hold on to that job for dear life. If you want to look for better, you're gonna either have to finish your finish your high school education, um, and or talk with a military recruiter about your possibility of getting, being able to enlist. So that's all I gotta say about that. But I'm gonna go, guys. This is it. Have a good night. Talk to you later. Peace.